Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Dear learners, I am Dr. Renuka Mainde, corporate nutritionist, academic counselor in IGNOU for their MSc DFSM course. Learners, the objective of present module are enumerate different types of meat, explain the methods of slaughter, explain the terminology carcass, explain the concept of red and white meat, discuss the composition of meat, explain marbling, its type and importance in meat cookery. Let's begin. Animals have the same biochemistry as those of human beings, and they are full of necessary proteins, amino acids that every human requires for his or her basic metabolism. Eating of meat has been prevalent since the time of cavemen, and till date, domestication of various animals around the world is done for same reason. Meat, in its broadest definition, is an animal tissue used as food. Most often, it refers to skeletal muscle and associated fat. It may also refers to non-muscle organs including organ meat, variety meat or all edible portions other than the muscles. Meat also include organ meat like heart, liver, kidney, tongue, brain, thymus, pancreas, diaphragm, chick, meat, edible fat, tripe, that is meat from the forestomach of ruminants. All processed or manufactured products which might be prepared from these tissues are also covered by this definition. Meat include sheep, pig, goat, horse mostly, and also other four-legged animals. Meat refers to those parts of animals that are used as food and include muscles, connective tissues and other parts of body. Meat flavor and quality largely depends on the type of animal, species, age, part of body animal. Meat contains good quality protein, high amount of fat, heme iron, B vitamins. Carbohydrates in meat are glycogen and glucose. Let us understand types of meat. Mutton and lamb. The meat of sheep, goats and lamb is included in this category. In India, this form of flesh foods is most commonly consumed. Beef. Beef is the meat of mature cow. Veal is the meat of immature calf between 4 to 8 weeks old. I'll just repeat this sentence again. Veal is the meat of the, I'll just repeat again. Veal is the meat of immature calves between 4 to 8 weeks old. Pork is the meat of a pig. Meat of horse, dog is also consumed in some parts of India. Meat quality is normally defined by the compositional quality, that is lean to fat ratio, and the palatability factors such as visual appearance, smell, firmness, juiciness, tenderness and flavor. Let us understand meat consumption pattern. ICMR recommended daily allowance of meat as 34 grams per person per day, but the actual per capita consumption is as low as 14 grams per day. In India, over 80% of population is non-vegetarian according to Anthropological Survey of India. Majority do not consume beef due to its religious, socio-economic and cultural reasons. Most of the consumer prefer lamb and poultry. Methods of slaughter. Method of slaughter of food animals in trend are halal, that is adopted by Muslim community, jhatka method adopted by Sikh community, kosher method is adopted by Jewish community. Stunning. In humane slaughter, the animal should be stunted and completely bleed. Stunning can be performed by electrical shock, mechanical means or gaseously, causing the animal to be insensitive and immobile to aid in further processing. What is carcass? Carcass means dead body of animal or any part thereof, including the viscera of any animal which has been slaughtered. This is the actual and main act of killing the animal to obtain carcass meat. It is a combination of multiple steps depending on the requirements and desire of the market consumers. The preservation is highly impacted by the presence of blood, as it is a major source of foodborne pathogens and has undesired appearance, so should be removed as much as possible. Postmortem examination. The remnant carcass and visceral organs are examined for any contamination, diseases or defect. Any contaminated or whole carcass should be removed if contamination is found, depending upon the seriousness of the defect, regulatory acts and advisories. Processing of carcass, cleaning and sanitation. Finally, the carcass is pressure washed and sanitizers like chlorine, lactic acid and others are used to lower the existing microbial load. Chilling. If the fresh cut carcasses are not used or sold immediately, they are frozen to an optimal temperature to avoid any deteriorating reactions and can thus be preserved up to 2 to 3 days. Along with freezing, drying of the carcass surface is also done, as wet surfaces tend to attract more microbial growth. Processing of carcass. Cutting. Cuts primal and wholesale cut. Primal sold for individual household needs, round, loin, chunk and rib. Wholesale cuts sold for larger demands, hotels, food companies. It includes legs, loin, shoulder, neck, breast, rack, shank. Packaging done as per demand. Red meat. The chemical characteristics of animal consist of water, protein, fats, carbohydrates, minerals and vitamins. Apart from these components, meat also have a pigment called myoglobin. It is this pigment which is responsible for the color in the meat. Pork and lamb have lesser amount of myoglobin and hence meat is pink in color, whereas beef has fairly higher amount of myoglobin leading to dark purplish color of the meat. Beef turns bright red after cutting because of the reaction of the myoglobin with oxygen. Red or dark meat is made up of muscles with the fibers that are called slow twitch. These muscles are used for extended period of activity such as standing or walking and need consistent energy source. The protein myoglobin stores oxygen in muscle cells which use oxygen to extract the energy needed for constant activity. Myoglobin is a richly pigmented protein. The more myoglobin there is in the cells, the red or darker the meat. When dark meat is cooked, the myoglobin's color changes depending on what the meat's interior temperature is. When dark meat is cooked, myoglobin's color changes depending on the interior temperature of meat. When beef is cooked to more than 80 degrees centigrade, myoglobin's red color remains unchanged. Above 80 degrees centigrade, myoglobin loses its ability to bind oxygen and the iron atom at the center of its molecular structure loses an electron. Changes in red meat on cooking. This process forms a tan-colored compound called hemichrome which gives medium done meat its color. When the interior of the meat reaches more than 90 degrees centigrade, hemichrome level rise and the myoglobin becomes metmyoglobin which gives well done meat its brown grey shade. Myoglobin is the cell which transports oxygen to muscles in the bloodstream. Let us understand what is white meat. White meat is made up of muscles with fibers that are called fast twitch. Fast twitch muscles are used for quick burst of activities such as flying from danger. These muscles get energy from glycogen which is also stored in the muscles. White meat has translucent glassy quality when it is raw. When it's cooked, the protein denatures and recombines or coagulate and the meat becomes opaque and whitish. Pig is a source of dark meat, though pig is often called the other white meat. Pig's muscles do not contain myoglobin, but the concentration is not as heavy as it is in beef. Chicken have mixture of both dark and white meat, and fish is mainly white meat. Let us understand the difference between red meat and white meat. The main difference between red and white meat is their nutritional content. Red meat tend to be higher in fat, particularly in saturated fat and calories. This is why they are often associated with an increased risk of heart disease and other health problems. However, red meat are also good source of protein, iron and other important nutrients. White meats on the other hand are generally leaner and low in calories and fat. They are also good source of protein as well as other nutrients like vitamin B12 and niacin. Structure of muscle fiber. Muscle fibers are known as myofibrils, which are composed of thick and thin filaments arranged in repeating pattern alongside the other myofibrils. One unit of a bundle is called sarcomere or little muscle. The thick filaments are the contractile protein myosin. The thin filaments known as actin contains two other protein called troponin and tropomyosin that regulates muscle contraction. The amount of connective tissues in meat and its solubility can directly influence the tenderness of meat muscle. As an animal ages, it has more connective tissues and therefore experiences cross-linking and increase in connective tissues that becomes highly insoluble. This is why older animals are usually tougher and younger animals are more tender. Let us understand composition of meat. In general, meat is composed of water, fat, protein, minerals and small proportion of carbohydrates. The most valuable component from the nutritional and processing point of view is protein. Protein contents and value defines the quality of raw meat materials and its solubility for further processing. Protein content is also the standard for the quality and value of the finished processed meat products. Water in meat. Muscle contains approximately 75% water, ranges from 65 to 80% by weight. Water is the principal constituent of the extracellular fluid and numerous chemical constituents are dissolved or suspended in it. Because of this, it serves as the medium for the transport of substances between the vascular bed and muscle fibers. Generally, lean meat contains 16 to 22% protein. Meat proteins are superior to plant protein because proteins of high biological value are present in meat in concentrated form. Muscle proteins are broadly divided into following three categories: soluble in water or dilute salt solution. They are called as sarcoplasmic proteins. Soluble in concentrated salt solution. They are called myofibril proteins. Insoluble in salt solution at low temperature. Proteins of connective tissues and others form structures. Meat protein, myoglobin, hemoglobin and various enzymes constitute sarcoplasmic protein, whereas myofibrillar proteins comprises of actin, myosin, trypomyosin, troponin, alpha, beta, gamma, actinin, C proteins, M proteins, etc. Major connective tissues protein are collagen, elastin and reticulin. Meat protein. Generally, proteins are very much susceptible to denaturation at their isoelectric point at relatively low temperature and on exposure to acid conditions. Denatured meat becomes insoluble in aqueous solution and this property affects the structure and characteristics of meat, its appearance and ability to hold or bind water. Meat fat. The fat content of meat varies greatly from species to species, ranges approximately 1.5 to 13%. Fat is found in meat as intracellular deposit or as marbling or intramuscular in adipose tissue depots associated with the loose connective tissues septa between the bundles. Meat fats are generally simple triglycerides in composition of meat nature, but beef and mutton have mixed triglycerides. Caloric value of fat depends on fatty acid composition. Meat mainly contains saturated and monosaturated fatty acids. Commonly occurring saturated fatty acids of meat are palmitic acid and stearic acid. Oleic, linoleic and linolenic acids are major unsaturated fatty acids in meat. Scientists are trying to increase the proportion of polyunsaturated fatty acids to saturated fatty acids in meat, considering their effects on human health. In ruminant like pig and poultry, body fat closely reflects the characteristics of the dietary fat. Fat of pig is called lard, which is soft in nature due to more proportion of unsaturated to saturated fatty acid. Beef fat is harder than pork because beef fat contains up to 25% stearic acid, that is saturated fatty acids. The saturation of lamb or mutton fat may account for the greasy mouth feel associated with eating it, since the melting point of this fat often above the temperature of the mouth. Phospholipids, sphingomyelins, glycolipids and cholesterol are also present in meat. Phospholipids have an important role in cellular metabolism and are mainly found in cell wall. The nature of fatty acid present in phospholipids is unsaturated. Carbohydrates in meat. Carbohydrate is minor component of animal tissues in terms of overall composition, but it plays a very important role in conversion of muscle to meat. Main carbohydrate of meat is glycogen, which is polymer of glucose. It is found particularly in the muscles and organ meat like liver. In well-fed animals, liver contains 50 mg glycogen per gram of liver tissue. Generally, 10 to 20 mg of glycogen is present in 1 gram of muscles. In fasting stage of animal, before slaughter, liver glycogen is converted into glucose to maintain blood glucose concentration at a constant level. In anaerobic condition, muscle glycogen is used to produce energy for contraction and then broken down to lactic acid. The post-mortem changes and onset and completion of rigor mortis greatly depend on glycogen reserve of the muscles. Carbohydrates present in meat are mucopolysaccharides associated with connective tissues, glucose and intermediates of glycolytic metabolism like lactic acid, acetoacetic acid. Minerals in meat. Meat contains sodium, potassium, magnesium, chlorine, phosphorus, iron, calcium, sulfur, etc. It is a very good source of iron because 100 grams of cooked meat supplies 35% of daily iron recommendation. 100 grams of liver supplies almost 100% of iron recommendation for an adult human. Iron is present as hemoglobin, myoglobin and certain other enzymes in animal tissues. Calcium is mainly present in bone and teeth of the animal. Vitamins in meat. Lean meat is an excellent source of B complex group of vitamins but is a poor source of fat soluble vitamins like A, D, E and K and water soluble vitamin C. Meat fat provides this fat soluble vitamins to some extent. Certain organ meats contain vitamin C in minor quantities. All of the B complex vitamins are present in meat and in a concentrated form in liver. Content of B complex group vary among different species of meat. Pork is superior to beef, veal, lamb or poultry meat in terms of B complex vitamins. Thiamine content of pork is 8 to 10 times higher than other meats, but its vitamin B12 content is less. Liver of any animal is a good source of vitamin B, that is thiamine. During cooking, some of these water soluble vitamins are lost. Minor component of meat. There are also some non-protein nitrogenous substances like nucleotides and peptides, etc. Nucleotides like adenosine monophosphate, adenosine diphosphate, adenosine triphosphate, nicotinamide, adenine dinucleotide play an important role in conversion of muscle to meat. Minor components of meat. They are also important in the development of meat flavor as they act as a flavor enhancer. Peptides like carnosine and anserine are present in all species, but anserine is present especially in some birds and balanine in pig muscle. Let us understand what is marbling of meat. Marbling means intramuscular fat. This can be visibly detected when the muscle surface is cut. It is located in the perimycial connective tissues between muscle and fiber bundles. Marbling is highly desirable in any cut of meat and is highly related to juiciness and flavor. Marbling also has a positive effect on tenderness of meat, possibly by acting as a lubricant during chewing and swallowing. Marbling factor is very difficult to identify in case of live animal, but it is easy to identify to certain extent in case of carcass. Different types of meat marbling. Fine marbling. The lean muscle has a high frequency of thin, evenly distributed flakes of fat. These fine flakes melt during cooking, adding juiciness and tenderness throughout the meat. Medium marbling, an inferior form of marbling. It features larger, less evenly distributed flakes of fat, which can negatively affect the cooking and eating experiences. Medium marbling. Larger pieces of fat take longer to tender and liquefy. As a result, while cooking a medium marble stick, the fat will not render in time to add juiciness and tenderness to a stick. Medium marbling. Uneven distribution can also lead to certain areas of pieces of meat being more tender and juicier while others are tough and dry. Different types of meat marbling. Coarse marbling, the least desirable type of marbling. It has large uneven flakes of intramuscular fat. The problem with medium marbling are even more pronounced. Let us understand importance of marbling. When cooking, marbling adds flavor and juiciness as the fat melts into the steak. The marbling keeps the meat moist, so natural juices don't evaporate in the pan. Fat is more tender than muscle fiber in steak. Marbling adds tenderness, which is preferable mouthfeel. Some fats are undeniably bad. Let us understand the application of heat on meat. When meat protein is cooked, muscle protein collagen is converted into gelatin, which makes it soft. Heat causes fat to melt, result in browning, and browning fat develops flavor and juiciness in meat. Chemical tenderizing helps to break down the connective tissues, collagen to gelatin. Use of lime juice, wine, vinegar helps to tenderize the meat. Enzymes, mostly papaya, pineapple, helps in the softening the meat. Let's conclude, learners. Meat, in its broadest definition, is animal tissue used as food. Meat often refers to skeletal muscle and associated fat. Meat contains good quality protein, high amount of fat, heme iron, B vitamins. ICMR recommended the daily allowance of meat as 34 grams per person per day, but the actual per capita consumption is as low as 14 grams per day. In India, over 80% of the population is non-vegetarian according to Anthropological Survey of India. Carcass means dead body of animal or any part thereof, including the viscera of any animal which has been slaughtered. The chemical characteristics of animal consist of water, proteins, fats, carbohydrates, minerals and vitamins. Red or dark meat is made up of muscles with fibers that are called slow twitch. White meat is made up of muscles with fibers that are called fast twitch. Generally, proteins are very much susceptible to denaturation at isoelectric point at relatively low temperature and on exposure to acid conditions. Marbling also has a positive effect on tenderness of meat, possibly by acting as lubricant during chewing and swallowing. Thank you, learners.